I'm Jack Jamieson. I'm presenting on behalf of my colleagues, Eureka Foong and Naomi Yamashita. This paper is titled Maintaining Values, Navigating Diverse Perspectives in Value-Charged Discussions in Open Source Development. To begin with, there is a broad recognition in CSCW and related areas that technologies can reflect their stakeholders' values, and so it is important to study how designers and developers engage with values when making technologies. And this project addresses a gap about values in later stages of technology development. Most research about values and design focuses on these earlier stages, and this means that there is a need for more research to understand how developers engage with values in later stages of development. And to address that gap, we study archives of open source development using GitHub. GitHub is the most popular platform for hosting open source software development. A GitHub repository contains both an archive of revisions to code and files and archives of discussions called issues, which are mostly bug reports and feature requests. We focused on issues in our analysis. This allows us to observe how contributors discuss values over time, including those later stages of maintenance and so on. Our first research question was simply, when do discussions about values occur in GitHub issues? And then because issues are almost always about requesting changes, they're often sites for conflict. So we also asked, how do people experience disagreements in value-related discussions on GitHub? And what are the outcomes of value-related conflicts and current practices to address them? We specifically looked at projects related to the D-Web. This is a community of companies, teams, and individuals building protocols, software, and other technologies for decentralized web infrastructures. This site has some key benefits for this study. First, most of these projects are open source and hosted on GitHub, so we could access the data that we need. Second, these projects have shared commitments to values, which are articulated in published D-Web principles. There were two parts to our research design. First, for a quantitative analysis, we downloaded GitHub issues for 51 D-Web related projects. We built a dictionary of terms related to important D-Web values based on those published principles. And then we used that dictionary to identify value-related discussions for our analysis. After that, we interviewed people who we identified participating in disagreements about values on those projects. So to get to our results, for our first research question about when discussions about values occur in GitHub issues, first we saw that value-related discussions were certainly not the majority, but they were present in most projects. The most commonly discussed values were respectfulness, broad-mindedness, and freedom. And we saw that values were referenced both as features of the technologies being developed, but also in relation to the process of development. So for example, discussions about respectfulness regularly were about encouraging respectful collaboration on GitHub. We also found that the first year of a project tended to have a lower percentage of value-related comments when compared to the second year and beyond. And this emphasizes the need to investigate values-related discussions in these later stages of development. Using multiple logistic regression and reporting odds ratios, we also found that discussions related to values were more likely when there was more comments overall. It's not surprising at all. But also, even controlling for the number of comments, value-related discussions were more likely when there was more people participating in the discussion. Further, we also saw that conversations about respectfulness in particular were more likely if there was more users participating in the discussion, but that this was not related to the overall number of comments. So one explanation here is simply that if there's a higher number of people posting, there's a greater chance for diverse opinions, which could lead to more discussions about values. But this could also lead to more disagreements, which could necessitate these reminders about being respectful to one another. Our second research question looked at how people experience these disagreements. One clear pattern was that for the people who were asking for changes and citing values in relation to those requests, disagreements were very high stakes when compared to non-values related issues. We also saw a real lack of common ground about how much time software maintainers should devote to specific issues. For example, we saw participant 4 here express frustration, saying they were cheesed off that there was never any effort made to discuss a specific change with server admins, and then complained this project is developed under the benevolent dictator for life model. And we can contrast that with a view by a maintainer who said, open source doesn't mean my time is open, but sometimes people expect that. When it came to the outcomes of these discussions, one thing was that it was relatively uncommon to see values-related issues lead to specific concrete implementations in code, partly because values-related issues were often quite complicated. We also saw that they could slow development down. Like participant 2 said, the level of heat and debate in a particular comment thread actually delayed any implementation work. Another outcome was that after these issues were solved and the way they were resolved really affected people's desires to participate in the future. And this could be positive. Like participant 8 described that it was great having participated with others in trying to make a change and seeing that change actually come about. So there was no reason to not try that again in the future. So participant 8 felt encouraged by their experience. But by contrast, negative experiences were emotional and quite discouraging. And for example, after years of contributing to a project, participant 5 left due to disagreements about user privacy and said, you have this frustration that builds over time and over the years. It's sad. That's the remaining feeling that I have about all of this. So in these results, we can see that value-related discussions are clearly important. Many contributors cared deeply about project values, and we saw discussions surfacing problems that were difficult to see otherwise. But these discussions did also cause some difficulties. They placed a lot of demands on already busy maintainers. They could slow down development, and bad outcomes could motivate people to want to quit contributing to projects. So we make some recommendations in the paper for maintainers to make the most of these sorts of discussions. This includes working to improve common ground. So for example, by providing structures such as templates to make sure that people are having conversations with the same expectations about how the discussion should proceed, its goals, and the potential outcomes. As well, because value-related discussions were often too big for a single issue, really. Issues in general are usually about a specific solvable problem or proposal. So we made some suggestions for facilitating bigger picture discussions. And this includes creating better links between GitHub and external discussion channels. For example, there's a lot of discussion that goes on Discord and places like that. Additionally, we recommend that maintainers could consider using tags to illuminate how values are being discussed across multiple issues, which could make it possible to see how values like privacy or freedom are expressed across a whole project. There's of course more detail in the full paper, and it's available at that URL on my website. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions. And finally, thank you very much for watching.